Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today I'll be describing my project, which is making a Spring backend app exposing the REST API and tested and documented with Swagger. So right now I'm just going to go through the front end first. What we're seeing here is a Strider backend API. It is Swagger. What is Swagger doing? Swagger, it is a live tester, and everything we do in Swagger is like we do it in Postman, but in a different way. What we see here is CRUD operations. We can delete the activity according to its ID, and we can get the activity according to its ID too, and I can update my activity by putting in the specific information. So I can update it by using the put method, and the post method is putting it creates and returns a new generated UUI ID. So I'm going to start on the front end first, and we're going to test our Swagger UI if it's working properly. So first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to change the ID number, and I'm going to change it to 5. After that, I'm going to change the name too and put in let's put in Monaco, and we're going to put in amazing, right? Amazing. And we're going to put in the distance kilometers, which is let's say 100 kilometers, and the duration time will say maybe 9 hours, right? Now what I'm expecting is for post my post method to create a new ID and generate a unique ID, is to create a new activity and generate a unique ID. So I'm going to execute it, and I'm expecting a successful status code. Now let's execute. Everything is executed, which means it returns a 201 status code, which means everything went well, and we can see our ID and our title and the description. We have the activity and everything is running well. Now to see if this pulled through, if my activity pulled through, we're going to go to our get method, and we're going to execute it to see all of our activities there. Now let's get into it and check if everything is balanced. So now we're going to execute it and see if everything is accordingly. Remember, we want to see the Monaco activity. Okay, I have that activity. To show that everything went well, it returns a 200 status code, and I can see my activity Monaco amazing, and the distance kilometers and the duration minutes. Now I want to delete a specific event. Let's delete event evening ride. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy my ID, my whole ID, and I'm going to go to my delete method. Now inside my delete method, we just need the ID of the activities so that they can be actively deleted successfully. So I'm going to paste my ID here, and remember, we want to delete our activity called evening riding. So now I'm going to execute it. Remember, when I click the execute Swagger button, it sends a real HTTP request to my Spring Boot app. So I'm going to execute it. As you can see, it is executed, and it returns a 204 status code, which means it is actively deleted, right? Now we're going to see if it is deleted for real. So now I'm going to execute, and we don't want to see the event evening riding, so I'm going to execute it. Now there's no evening running, evening ride. So these are all my activities. Now I want to update. We're testing all of these quad operations. I want to update my morning run activity, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this information, take my ID, and I'm going to copy it and go to my put method. Inside this put method, let's just put in our ID here. And I have, let's see, I have morning run. So I want to update my morning run. I'm going to put it here. Morning run. Want to put description. What did I say for morning run? Park loop. Description, I would say tired. Right, it's tired, and I have the distance kilometers. Let me just say 100, and I say for about 3 hours. It's no more those um new it's no more those new control Z, control Z. It's no more those old numbers. Now I put in the ID that I want to change. Remember, we're updating the morning run activity. So now we change the kilometers and the duration minutes. Now we want to see if everything is pulling correctly. Now let's execute it. It returns error status is 400. Activity updated. Bed request. Morning run. Now let's do Control Z. There's something I did wrong here. There's something I did wrong. Yeah. Duration minutes, I'll put let's see, morning run has 28. I'll just put in 28. And I'm going to update. Let's execute. Still. Yeah. My put method is working. Sorry. Everything is working on my delete button. I'll just go through my backend code. So what you're seeing here is an API docs raw open API specification. This endpoint always return the open API specification of my API in JSON format, and Swagger UI uses this JSON internally. So the JSON describes that our endpoint paths, we have the response schemas and the components tags. As you can see, we have the title that we are seeing here in our Swagger UI, which is Strider Backend API, and our description, which is REST API for Strider, and contact, which is our name Strider, and our email support strider.dev. Then I have my activities, which contains of the description all the CRUD operation for the user's activities, and I go to my specific. If I want to delete a specific activity, I need to indicate the ID, get activity by ID, which gets the ID and it displays all the activities, which is unique ID. Right, now let me go to my code. So before I move on, Swagger automatically scan my controllers and my models, and it generates clean and clickable testable documentation, and I can see requests directly from my Swagger UI. As you can see, I can see request directly from my browser. Then I'm going to go to my code here. I have the configuration class. What am I doing? I'm customizing the generated open API Swagger documentation, and this class sets the title, version, the description, the contact details, and the license and information appears in the Swagger UI. As you can see, I have the information, the response code, the activity to activity to do, all of those, and the servers, all of them. Then it creates and configures the Open API bin, and Spring automatically loads this into Open API auto configuration, allowing me to customize how my API documentation appears, right? Then I create an info block that defines core metadata for my API documentation, which has the title displayed in Swagger UI and the version API version and the description, short description and the strider and all of that. Then I go to my activity controller, which is where the main things happen. What am I doing? I'm using REST controller and request mapping. Swagger tag, it has a Swagger tag for grouping all the activities related for the endpoints, and I have my activities for CRUD operations for user activities, and I'm injecting the services that handles the business logic. Then I'm using the constructor injection for my activities service, and I'm using a method called get API version 1 activities. It returns all the activities, which is what I used in my Swagger UI. It returns all the activities in the system with their unique IDs. And I have my post method, post mapping. Inside my post method is a method which creates a new activity and returns it with a generated unique ID. So it responds with a 201 created plus location header, which is what I showed you in my Swagger UI. Where is it? In here, we are creating a new activity. As you can see, I created a new activity called Monaco and it returned a 201 status code, which means the activity was created successfully, right? Then we go to our public response internally. We create the activity using the service layer and I build the URI for the new resource, which is API version 1 and activities, which gets the unique ID. Then I have the URI location. It has the service-led URI components builder from the current request and the path and the build expand. After that, I'm using the get method. Inside this get method, what am I doing? I want to display all the activities, but I want to fetch a single activity by its unique ID. So I haven't tested this one. So we're going to test it in our front end with our get method. We have two gets. So I have the gets to list all the activities. Now I want to get this activity called pop, and I'm going to copy it and I'm going to go to my get ID method and I'm going to post the unique ID there and I'm going to execute it. I'm expecting that it must display a successful status code and the activity. Execute. It responded with a 200 status code, which means our application went well and it was successful, put through. We have our title pop and grade, and we have the distance kilometers, which is 80 kilometers, and the duration minutes, which is 60, right? And then we have our put method, that one I explained. Inside this put mapping, what we're doing is we are updating our existing activity and it returns 200 if successful. If not, it returns a 404 status code, right? Then we have our delete activity activity method. Inside this, it deletes the activity and always returns an HTTP 204 status code, which means it was successfully deleted. Then I go to my models. Inside this model, I have my activity internally that represents running and cycling or working activity. This class maps directly to a database table through JPA annotations, and each instance represents one activity record and stored in the database. Then I have the primary key, which is the unique key. It automatically was generated by the Hibernate when a new activity is saved. Then I have my short title of the activity, which is morning run, which is what I showed you in my Swagger UI. When we display all activities, we have our morning run. We still have our morning run inside, which comes from there. Then we have our distance completed, which is measured in kilometers, and our duration of the activity in minutes, and the date when the activity took place, right? And the full constructor used to create activity objects manually. It is useful for testing and custom logic. That's why we're using our Swagger UI. It is a better version of, I can say, Hotspot and Postman. Yeah, I can say that. Then inside my application YML, I have my Swagger UI and my path. So um, I have the API docs in the front end here, which comes from my application YML. Application YML tells the app that what instruction it should perform when the user go to this specific link and the data we need in order to enter a specific app. Yes. And then we have the try it out enabled, which is true. We can try out, and indeed we did try out. We executed it and it sends a real HTTP request to our Spring Boot app. Then I have my data SQL. I did explain this, and my inside my PoxML, I'm making use of my Spring Doc Open API Starter Web MVC. What is the main purpose of this? It is a library that integrate with the Spring Boot framework to automatically generate an open API documentation for REST APIs. It allows developers to describe their API endpoints and models using annotations and generates an open API specification in either JSON, right? And yeah, then we have our validation package dependency, so that when we play our app, it runs perfectly. And then we have our plugins, which is Spring Boot Maven plugin, so that when I load my Maven, my Stride backend application can run very well. And we're running on version 3.3.4, and there's nothing much. I thank you for viewing this video, and I hope you learned something from my project, and hope you click the subscribe button to view more of my dope videos.